The Beach FM Business Lunch Show, brought to you by PlaceMakers Kapiti Horowhenua. Together we're building New Zealand.
Welcome back to the Business Lunch Show on Beach FM 106.3 on your Tuesday afternoon. And let's welcome back to the show to talk law. We had her on the 4th of May, and a lot has changed since then. From Wakefields Lawyers in Paraparaumu, it's Amy Webster. G'day, Amy.
Hi, Damian. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing at this time?
I'm good. I'm enjoying being back in the office, if I'm honest. We're trying to juggle daycare and work around, childcare and work during lockdown was a challenge. So I'm enjoying being in the office and being able to kind of get my head down and concentrate on one thing at a time.
Excellent. I'm sure a few less Zoom meetings as well.
Yes, they have reduced somewhat.
Excellent. Hey, we are back to business kind of as normal. How is level 2 going for you guys?
It's been pretty interesting kind of from lockdown to now. I guess we've had ups and downs like most businesses. Our conveyancing and immigration work pretty much ground to a halt during lockdown, but we had a steady stream of people wanting to update their wills, and we had bits and pieces of trust and estates work going on. Our family and commercial team seem to have been pretty much run off their feet the entire time, and I've certainly been busy helping employers and employees because there's been quite a few different issues coming up. Now we're at level 2. We've been pretty surprised that people still seem to be buying and selling houses for now at least, which is obviously encouraging. But one thing we didn't really expect is that as a result of the lockdown and people working from home, we've actually had some Kapiti locals transferring to us from their Wellington-based law firms. These people who usually work down in Wellington, but obviously during lockdown working from home, and come to us partly for the convenience, but also because they're wanting to support us as a local business. So that's been really cool. So I guess all in all, business is pretty good. We're cautiously optimistic, but obviously only time will tell what happens. I guess in particular, we'll be keeping our eye on the property market.
Hey, I mean, it does make sense that you transfer somewhere that nearby, lawyer, accountant, anything like that. It's been, rushed to get it done in your lunchtime kind of thing. But you guys do have an office in Wellington City, don't you?
Yeah, we do actually. We have an office down in Wellington, and we also have an office in Otaki and Foxton, and all of our teams work together across the offices. So yeah, if we've got a situation with somebody working down in Wellington, or perhaps a couple with somebody in Wellington and someone based on the coast, we're pretty much ideally placed to sort them out because we've got offices in both places.
Hey, let's go back to the working from home. I know personally I've loved it. I've been more productive. I had less travel. I'm more refreshed when I'm actually doing the do. Going back to that, how has the from employment perspective, now that workplaces are opening back up, what rights do the employees have around flexible working? What can they do, and how can they go about maybe broaching the subject of working from home?
That's a really interesting point, and I've been fielding questions on that from both employees and employers. The Employment Relations Act has got actually a pretty clearly prescribed regime about flexible working arrangements. It was originally introduced for people who had the care of somebody, care of a child, care of an elderly parent or whatever, to be able to ask for some flexibility. That changed in recent years, and it's now open to all employees. And again, it used to be that you had to wait 6 months before you can make a request, whereas now any employee at any time can make a request for flexible working. So what they need to do that is make a request in writing, and there's certain things that that request needs to have in there, things like their name, the date that they're making the request, the date that they would like the flexibility to start, and then the flexibility that they're asking for. So the kinds of things that employees can ask for is a change to their hours. So, some employees might want to work fewer hours, or if they're part-time, they might want to work more hours. The days that the work is done on, so some employees might like to go to, instead of 5 8-hour days, 4 10-hour days. And then the last thing is the place. So that's the big one here, I suppose, for working from home, where the work takes place. And so an employee can make a request in writing, as I say, and the details of exactly what needs to be included can be found on the government's employment website. And then an employer needs to consider that request, and they need to respond to it as soon as possible and no later than a month. So it is actually something they need to get onto. And there is essentially a list of reasons why a business might not be able to accommodate the flexibility, and the decision is confined to these particular things. So they include things like they're not able to reorganise the work amongst existing staff. So if someone's asking for fewer hours, have they got other staff that can pick it up? They're not able to recruit additional staff. So if it's a particularly specialist area, that might not be possible. Things like a negative impact on quality or performance. So for some more junior members of staff, employers might not want them working from home too much because they might not have the oversight that they would have in the office or other working environment. And other things, particular businesses, obviously, it's just not possible to work from home because you're in a customer-focused thing and you need to be on site. An employer needs to go through that, have a think about it, and reply again in writing, and there are certain things that need to be in the reply. And these arrangements can either be for a fixed period, and if so, then you talk about when's the end date, when's it going to end, or it's a permanent change. So essentially it's a variation to the employment agreement. And, this is a fairly prescriptive sort of way and a very formal kind of send a request, receive a reply sort of a process. What I always recommend to people is that they have a chat first. It's always worth sitting down, having a chat, exploring options before, making a formal arrangement. The other thing that some employers do, and I do encourage it, is that, if you're thinking about flexible working generally, rather than waiting for a request to come along, you could look at putting in place a flexible working policy. So if you have found that actually people working from home has been really good, you could sit down and think about, well, how can I make this a policy where people can do this on a regular basis without having to come to me and make a formal request. I think it's an interesting area at the moment, and the couple of things that I think have come up is that a lot of employees are sort of saying, "Well, I did it during lockdown. Why can't I keep doing it?"
It works.
Sorry.
Oh no, the old excuse, but it worked.
But it worked. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple of things that employers just need to be cautious of is that we sort of all got thrown into lockdown and there wasn't a lot of time to prepare. And if people are working from home, their home becomes a workplace, and that brings into play health and safety obligations. So employers have an obligation to take reasonably practical steps to make sure that the workplace is safe. Now, because we were all thrown into lockdown, there wasn't a lot that they could reasonably practically do. Now that we're coming out of lockdown, those obligations, definitely become important and something that's worth thinking about. So thinking about, does this person have a safe and healthy place to do their work? Are they, working on a laptop sitting on their couch? Or have they got a desk with an ergonomical chair and all of that? So it's not necessarily as straightforward as work during lockdown, so let's keep going. There's a little bit more thinking, and it might be a bit of expense on the employer as well, because they might have to think about, do they need to supply a good chair for this person to work on, that sort of thing. And I suppose the other thing, if you're dealing with, like us as lawyers, we have issues around confidentiality and privacy, and if I'm taking client information home, is that information safe? Which again, during lockdown, we've all kind of done what we needed to do, but now that we're kind of creeping towards normality, we need to start thinking about all these things again. So.
Yeah, well, I definitely wasn't thinking of the WorkSafe side. So, it definitely given me something to think about as well. Hey, you are going to be joining us from now on at the start of the month, of course, this being a Monday, Tuesday after the long weekend. But until then, how's the best way the listeners can get hold of the topics that you guys are talking about? How can they hear from you?
Essentially, I don't have topics, so I'd be interested if listeners have topics that they want to hear about. They can get in touch with us through Facebook or our website. They can just sort of submit a topic or a general question. But obviously, if people can't wait a month or have a very specific question, listeners are more than welcome to get in touch with me directly for a free 30-minute consult.
Outstanding. And Amy, all your contact details are on your website, wakefieldslaw.com?
Yeah. Phone number, email, it should all be there.
Excellent. Amy Webster from Wakefields Lawyers, thank you for your time today, my friend. We'll talk in a month.
Sounds good. See you soon.